You know, every now and then, a declassified document comes along that's more than just facts and figures. Sometimes you get what is, for all intents and purposes, a script. And today, we're diving into a plan from the peak of the Cold War that reads less like a military exercise and more like the production notes for a massive live-action show.
All right, so let's get right into this thing. What you're looking at is the cover of a 1978 Pentagon plan for a live-fire weapons demonstration. So where's the stage? The New Mexico desert. In the audience, well, that was the American public, all of its allies, and of course, its enemies. This was never just a test. It was a carefully, meticulously staged event, and it was all about sending a message. And they were not subtle about it. I mean, the official purpose, spelled out right there on page 1, is crystal clear. This was meant to be a global broadcast. The whole point was to show everyone, your friends and your foes, exactly what this new generation of American weapons could do.
So how in the world do you put on a show like this? A show that's designed to prove, with actual explosions and incredible accuracy, that your technology is just flat-out superior. Well, first things first, you've got to find the perfect location. And they found it. The event was set for the White Sands Missile Range. The document tells us exactly why. It had the perfect mix of accessibility, isolation, viewing vantage, safety, and availability of power. In other words, it was the perfect outdoor theater for a military performance.
Yeah, this whole thing wasn't some low-level idea. It was a directive from the very top. There's a memo in here from the Undersecretary of Defense making it clear that the goal was to give a public indication of the new capabilities offered by these so-called smart weapons, or PGMs. This was all about making a very, very public statement.
Okay, every great show needs its headliners, right? And for this particular demonstration, the lead roles weren't played by people. They were played by a brand new class of sophisticated, high-tech weaponry.
So here's the playbill, basically. You can see the whole cast of characters. You've got the Army's Copperhead artillery shell and the Tau missile, both going after tanks. The Air Force is bringing its GBU-15 and laser-guided bombs, and the Navy is showing off the Walleye. Each one had its own moment in the spotlight and a very specific target to take out, right on cue.
And this is where it gets just wild. The level of detail is incredible. This wasn't just, hey, fire a missile at that tank over there. No way. For each weapon, like the Army's Tau missile, they had a complete script. The plan even specifies its flight time, less than 10 seconds. And they literally mapped out the flight path for the audience to see.
And it wasn't just the Army. The Navy had the same incredible choreography for its Walleye, which was a TV-guided bomb launched from an A-7 jet. It had its own flight plan too, and the document even says a backup plane would be in the air ready to go if the first one had a problem. You gotta love that. The show must go on, right?
All right, so we've got the stage, we've got the stars. Now let's look at the actual script, the play-by-play for how this whole thing was managed, down to the minute to guarantee a perfect performance for all the VIPs and the world's media.
So this wasn't just thrown together last minute. Look at this timeline. This was a full-on production schedule, a month-long countdown to showtime. It covered everything from drafting the plan and sending out the invites, all the way to a full-dress rehearsal, a demonstration dry run, just 1 week before the main event. And then you get to the big day itself. I mean, look at this schedule. It reads just like a run sheet for a live show. Everything is blocked out in these tight 5, 10, 15-minute increments. It kicks off with the audience getting seated at 8:30 in the morning, runs through every single weapon firing, and ends with a press conference at noon. They even scheduled time for videotapes replay.
And check out this map of the viewing area. This wasn't just, hey everyone, stand over there in the desert. No way. They built a complete viewing facility. We're talking bleachers, a dedicated building just for the press, a VIP lounge, and even designated spots for TV cameras and narrators. The audience's experience was just as carefully designed as the weapons tests.
Now, a show like this isn't just about the cool tech and the big explosions. That's only half the battle. You have to shape the story. And for that, the Pentagon had a very comprehensive public affairs strategy. And again, they're not trying to hide it. The objective of the Public Affairs Annex was totally explicit. This whole thing was an exercise in managing public perception. The entire point was to make sure that the audience, both the people there in person and everyone watching on the news, left with a deep appreciation for America's technological power.
I mean, they literally rolled out the red carpet for the media. The plan covers everything from press kits and transportation to a dedicated press center with refreshments. They even built a special raised platform just to make sure the TV cameras got a perfect, unobstructed shot, and they promised to rush the videotapes to the networks within 45 minutes of the finale. They weren't just allowing coverage, they were basically producing it.
So, you're probably wondering, what's the price tag for a one-day fireworks show like this? The document puts the total cost at $688,610. Now, in 1978 dollars, that is a serious investment, especially for what was, at its heart, a massive public relations event.
But here's the thing about any live performance, right? Especially one that involves incredibly advanced technology, fighter jets, and a whole lot of high explosives. There is always the risk that something is going to go wrong. And that was the question the planners had to deal with. It was the elephant in the room. After all this meticulous planning, all this money, what happens if one of your star weapons misses its cue? Or even worse, what if it completely fails on stage, right in front of a global audience?
And this is really fascinating. There's a memo here written just after the scheduled demonstration date, and it reveals a huge potential problem. Turns out the 7,000 gallons of fuel they used for the laser-guided bomb's target could create so much smoke it might completely block the view of the target for the Navy's Walleye missile, which was up next.
So the project team basically said, yeah, we think the risk is acceptable. But, and this is a huge but, they also admitted that if the smoke was too bad on show day, they would be, and I'm quoting here, forced to abort that part of the demonstration. A visual failure was a very real possibility they had to plan for. And this might be the most telling detail in the entire document. The Public Affairs Plan explicitly told the staff to prepare pre-written statements that they could use in the event of a munition failure. They were so prepared for things to go wrong that they had their excuses scripted and ready to hand right over to the press.
So really, this whole declassified document comes down to one fascinating question. For the Pentagon back in 1978, the line between a technical test and a theatrical performance, well, it was practically non-existent. This was a carefully scripted, high-cost production designed not just to test technology, but to project an image of infallible, undeniable power to the entire world.